My favorite AACF memory. I'm going to save my first memory for another question. So I think my favorite one is after one of the large groups, I was chatting and I ended up walking back to Quincy with Abby, Rachel, Jenna, and we were talking about our interpretations of the message. We were talking about our faith background and what we were thinking about in our faith journey right at the moment. And I think it was just a wonderful time for us to connect and also for us to share our thoughts of faith. And I think that was one, very new to me, but also it was one of the first times in AACF where I really felt like I belonged and I was breaking out of like my one person known set of just Jimmy. It was just a really great community building moment for me, and it really showed me how wonderful it is to connect with people and discuss faith. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think one set of memories would be my experiences with winter retreats. All 4 winter retreats that I've attended have been really important for me, both in terms of my walk with God, but also with my relationships and sense of community in AACF. I think this, my senior retreat in particular, was one that was really important to me. Coming into it, I just think I had a lot on my mind, both with regards to like planning the retreat, but also with just like thesis work and post-grad stuff and all of these like questions swirling around me. And so I kind of actually didn't expect that I would be able to be really present and to really receive. But I feel very grateful and blessed that I was able to have a really important set of, I think, like personal experiences and reflections. Also that Saturday night worship. So worship in general has been a really important part of my experience with AACF. Several of my favorite memories are of us worshiping together as a community over the years. But yeah, that night I went into it, not thinking on paper that it would be a very emotional time. And then suddenly I'm looking around and people are like dropping like flies and like, praying and crying. And at first I was wondering like, oh, did I like miss something? Like, but yeah, I think that was really an amazing space where the Holy Spirit was just really present with our community. And then also the Sunday night worships where we kind of like lean into more of that joyful energy. We try to like dance together and sing and really just praise Him. I think, yeah, those are things that I remember very fondly. Briefly, also just large group. I've loved large groups ever since my freshman year. Those were consistently my favorite structure, I think. This year, getting to lead them was such a blessing every week. Whether no matter where I was at coming into that evening, every single Friday evening that we had large group was one that was definitely characterized by more joy and blessing and gratitude than anything else. My sophomore and junior year, the CG team communities were, I think, a really pivotal part of my community in AACF, finding a lot of love with the, especially the upperclassmen that I worked with on those teams. And I think my junior spring when I was on campus and the team ended up being on campus, even though it was like basically a remote semester, getting to really bond and spend time just, like loafing and I think the HBS campus and my suite and getting hot pot together, all of those moments were really bright spots.
My favorite AACF memory, I think or like large groups. I know I've only been to a couple this year, but just from my experience, freshman, sophomore, and the couple times I went this year, it's just so amazing to see everyone come together for one purpose, to worship God. I really loved our like worship sessions. Thank you, worship team. You have been such a blessing to our fellowship. And it's just so amazing to see so many people come together on a Friday night to worship and learn more about God. And yeah, I think another favorite memory, I think it's not like one single moment, but just in general. I remember just as a freshman being so loved and like poured into by the seniors and juniors. And they would just sacrifice their time to, you know, hang out with this little freshie, play, what is that game called? Play like Smash, get berry line. And I think as a freshman, I felt so, whoa, by these seniors and juniors and upperclassmen, like pouring their time and love into me. Yeah.
My favorite AACF memory is definitely this past winter retreat, whether it's playing Unstable Unicorns with the other seniors or staying up until 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in our comfies and talking, or meeting my small group for the first time and realizing that I've encountered this amazing, wonderful group of human beings. Yeah, I just have so much love for that past weekend, and I'm so grateful for all the amazing memories.
Oh, my favorite AACF memory is also my favorite Harvard memory, and it's giving my testimony in coffee house. I think it was just very freed, and also telling it to AACF was like so much fun. Like hearing the whole room laugh, and I don't know, just like the that I would hear. And it was also just a very healing experience for me. Like, I think I've always been a bit ashamed about like how I felt about my past. I was ashamed that I was still holding on to stuff. But like telling it and telling the pain in full honesty, but also hearing people like laugh and like about the joy and just the humor about everything that's happened also made me realize like there's so much beauty. There's so much beauty and so much, there's so much beauty in the pain. And it's not one or the other, but like it's both. And I just felt like tons of love from people, and I think that's the first time I felt like I've really served people.
Okay. My favorite AACF memory is honestly really difficult to choose from. I think a very wide tie between every single retreat that we've been on, particularly this past winter retreat since it was back in person again, and then I think my freshman year winter retreat was really special, and then also my sophomore year winter retreat was super special to me. And then on top of that, just how I think our senior classes really come together this past semester. All of our prayer meetings, all of our hangouts, all of our meals together, all the ways that they supported me through a lot of lows, I think, that were surprising me this year have just really, really meant a lot to me and are memories that I'll really cherish forever.
Hi, AACF. So choosing or admittedly just trying to remember a standout moment or favorite memory with the fellowship was a lot harder than I expected. Not so much because of a dearth of memories or opportunities to make them, but more so because of a more conscious realization of how much has happened within the past year, and just how the past 2 semesters have overflowed with blessings and growth at every turn. I was scrolling through my iPhoto just to jog my memory a bit, and came across a photo from one of our QRSs, or Quincy Read and Study sessions. This was actually maybe the day that QRS was coined, inspired by ABC Breakfast Clubs. And I remember always being excited after either coming back from a rehearsal, a long day at lab, or just working out at the MAC with Esther Lee, and peering into the D Hall to see who was around, since there was always pretty reliably at least one person there before the group would just grow and grow in a really beautiful way. And it's been these images, I think, of just beautiful moments of fellowship with one another, really just clear snapshots, I guess, where we may just be working or joking or anything else that I think I'll have just etched into my brain for a long time. Remembering this particular QRS that ran on into 3 a.m. in the morning because of a mix of work and just the long, spontaneous conversations that we all love. It made me think of our ABC before Thanksgiving break, where a group of us gathered at Tate, claiming the long, big table in the middle of the dining room on the first floor, as some folks were prepared to go home, spend time with family, and others were getting ready to remain on campus with other AACF friends and spend Friendsgiving together, which was super fun. I guess more recently from this semester, I was extremely touched and just so grateful for the ways that God has provided and provided so abundantly through this community. Seeing that at my baptism, there's a photo that I think my dad took of the prayer circle at the end, and I think that is just something that I will hold very near and dear for a very long time to come. Just seeing these kinds of images, holding on to them, and just remembering the way that God's love was really flowing through our community, both during the time captured in the image and just far past the edges of a four-cornered little piece of paper or screen, I think will be really meaningful to remember. Thanks.
I think one of my favorite moments in AACF was definitely like the second or third night of Winter Retreat 2020, when we sat around in a huge circle and just talked about like how the retreat has been affecting us and maybe some past hurts and pains that we dealt with. It was like really, really powerful to see Max share a personal experience and how that just set off a cascade effect in our fellowship, and seeing how like God was able to really bring all of us together in that way was super beautiful. I think also hearing from people like my discipler Francis talk and like other like fellow classmates in my grade, it just really opened up my eyes to a lot of how I like a lot of how like there is a lot of beauty and community in AACF, but that community also can be used to address like the individual pains and hurts that we've dealt with as individuals. And I think that night just really sticks out in my mind as being a night where, one of the few nights in my Christian life, I think, where I really, really was able to feel the whole, like physically like feel the Holy Spirit around me. And I think seeing everyone just like fall on their feet to pray for like all the individuals in the room was just so inspiring. Like I remember sitting there and I was like, wow, like AACF is such a beautiful community, and it is one that I am so honored and so glad and so grateful to God to have been a part of in my time in Harvard.
My favorite memory of AACF, I can't really choose, but the first memory of AACF that comes into my mind that really urged me to stick with AACF and stick with it was from my freshman year. I think like my freshman fall, I was checking out many different Christian groups on campus, but I decided to check out AACF freshman CG one day. And I remember just feeling like that week or that month, I can't remember, but I was just feeling very burnt out. I was physically and mentally tired, and I remember walking to CG, and afterwards the CG leader, I think at that time was Daniel, he came up to me, checked in with me despite my first time meeting him, and we had a meal together, and it was something that really touched me so much in that moment and really carried me through when I was going through a harder time or a harder period in my life. And I was so grateful for that. And since then, I've stuck with AACF, and I've been so grateful for the relationships I found here. And also, I guess like more recently, favorite AACF memory is like my moments with at senior prayer meetings. I'm so sad that I joined kind of late, because each time I go in, I just feel so happy, and I feel like I can be myself or don't have to put as much of a filter as I do in other settings on campus. And it's so great to have a space where we can pray for each other, which is something I started doing in college and didn't really understand the concept of until I came here and joined AACF. And so those are some of my favorite memories.
Funniest memory probably is freshman year skit. Honestly, it was just really fun. Like, I was bombarded. I had no idea we were doing a freshman year skit, and I think it turned out honestly really well. I think we have some great actor and actresses in the class of 2022. I think it's on Facebook. I recommend everyone go check it out. But yeah, definitely the funniest. I don't know. Something about just being goofballs and trying to impersonate these seniors that we literally had no idea were like what they were actually like was quite entertaining.
Honestly, I think whenever I see Grace Chang, not Grace Tian, on the podium, like making an announcement, or just like Grace being Grace, she's like a living meme in a good way. She is like, she just makes you feel comfortable and welcomed, and she's just very funny. I know she's funny, so I don't really want to like admit it a lot of times, but you know, this can be the one time I make an exception. But I love you, Grace Chang.
My first AACF memory, or the first event I attended, or how I first got exposed and why I stuck around. All this can be answered in the same answer. Most of you probably think I'm blockmates with Jimmy, or at least I've been told. I actually didn't know Jimmy before AACF. So really what happened was senior spring, this semester for me, I was like, I really want to like get to know the Christian community on campus, and I guess better late than never. So I was looking for who could help me do that. And I had heard Jimmy have Christian conversations with some of my friends. So I hit up a mutual friend and was like, yo, do you have his number? Sent him a text, and he was like, come to our senior kickback on Thursday. Like, it was like a Monday or something. So rocked up to senior kickback, had no idea what to expect. I actually don't think there was like a agenda. We just all hung out in Jenna's room and chatted, did nothing for like a good amount of time, just chatted. And then I was going through the I think it's a We're Not Strangers game. There's the cards, and I was going through the cards, and like I was like, oh, which of these are good questions? I have a roommate who's very good at asking questions. And I'm sitting there going through the cards, and I'm like, please, I don't want to play this with a group of strangers. And at that time, Jenna is like, oh, we should add some structure to the interaction. Why don't we play this game? And I'm like, no, I actually said no to her. But then Jimmy chimes in and he goes, you know what I really like? I like it when people share their life stories. So why don't we share our life stories? And I'm here thinking, oh my goodness, I'm in a room of strangers. But we ended up going in a circle, sharing our life stories. And it was a bonding experience, like I'm sure many of you have had at Harvard when you do that really, really quickly. But it was really wonderful. I think it allowed us to get to know each other really quickly, but it also wasn't awkward. It was really wonderful, and everybody was, it was a nice space. And then after that, Jimmy was like, come see Abby give her testimony on Zoom. I attended that, and then after that, he was like, come to retreat. I'm like, what is retreat? And I was like, in my mind, retreat was, let's go to New Hampshire and sit around a campfire for 3 days. Fully what I intended to do until Jimmy sent me the schedule as I was getting on the bus. And had a wonderful time at retreat. And after that, I was like, no, the AACF is the group for me, and I've been here since. I just wish I had joined sooner, but yeah, such wonderful people, all of you.
The first AACF event I went to was Johnny and Jenna's testimony on Zoom. I was really good friends with Carissa Chen, and she like misled me into coming and said like, I didn't really connect the dots that AACF was a Christian thing, but Carissa was like, she just told me it was like really great community, really great stories, really great people, and I was like so intrigued. And then I came on their Zoom and I was like really confused the entire time. Also because Johnny was my path and he was like revealing all his childhood traumas, so that was, yeah, that was a lot.
I don't remember with like a ton of accuracy this was actually the first thing I ever went to, but I mostly just remember starting the year primarily going to HCFA events, and I think not necessarily looking to be part of an Asian American fellowship because I had gone to a Chinese church growing up and I kind of didn't feel the need to like replicate that experience. But then the convenient thing about AACF's large groups was just that they were in Harvard Hall, and HCFAs I think were in Yenching Auditorium, and I had no idea where that was, and every single week I was late, so I kept missing the group that walked over together. And so one week on Friday night, I forget what I was coming from, but I got off of an Uber that dropped me off at Johnston Gate, and it was like 8:30 p.m. and I was aware that it was probably right in the middle of large group, which was right next to Johnston Gate, so I was like, oh, why not? Sure, like I'll check it out. And I still remember like I walked in the middle of the speaker, yeah, like, you know, giving the message, and I sat by myself in like the far left side that's closest to the door, and I think like the large group exec at the time kept like glancing over because it was like, who is this, you know, newcomer who I don't recognize? And yeah, I don't know what it was about that night. I don't think the speaker was like extraordinary. I don't think I had like any particularly meaningful experience besides the fact that by the end of it, I was really intrigued. I wanted to see. It worked, and so I'm glad that they got me to stick around.
My first AACF memory was actually at Visit Us. You guys had Felipe's nachos, I remember, and I didn't know what Felipe's was or whatever. I was just like, wow, free food. Amazing. This is a fellowship I want to join. I think what made me really stuck around, actually, though, in all seriousness, was probably the Asian American focus. It's a really unique position, I think, to be a Christian and to be Asian American. It comes with specific family ideals and pressures, and it's really, I think it's very unique to have a community that really understands that background that you're coming from, and is able to really touch upon topics in a way that like really focuses and is relevant, I think, to our lives today.
I had seen Jenna once before I joined AACF. She came to Courier to get a meal with a mutual friend of ours. So in my mind, she was just this girl with blue hair. And then I rock up to the senior kickback because Jimmy invites me, and it's in her room. And Jimmy has the idea of sharing life stories. And we're going around, and Jenna goes, I was a pathological liar as a child. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't think it's unreasonable for that to be like startling. So yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, kind of speechless about that. But really got to know Jenna over the course of the semester during retreat. Because Jimmy was like the only person I comfortably knew, I just hung around him. Because he was on exec, he hung around Jenna. So I got to know Jenna, and we have mutuals. And she's lovely and funny and really sincere. And I think that if you have the chance, you should totally get to know her. Most of you probably do. But also, like, if you've only known her as like a leader in AACF and not as a person. You should totally like get to know her. But yeah, that was an interesting first impression, to say the least.
I had the least accurate impression of Grace Tion. Okay, there's only one Grace, but yeah, I mean, I've seen her around in Lev a lot because they're both in the same house. And every time I saw her, you know, she's like very tall. She's like a distinct walk. And I was just very scared of her. And it seemed like she was walking with a purpose and like never really smiled. And so I was very, very scared of Grace. But as soon as I heard her voice and was able to talk to her, I quickly realized that was very wrong. She's the very opposite of scary. She's very funny. She's just actually hilarious. Like every single word or every single thing she says is very funny. And I'm sure you know like what Grace is like. Grace is Grace. And so I love you, Grace. You're not scary.
I think I had the least accurate impression of Carissa. I just remember she was really scary. Like, we took the same math class together, but she struck me as like really popular and like cool, but also kind of intense too, because she would like complain very openly about how much work she had. And then I think in CG, I remember one time how she said she wanted it to like jump off the window or something. So I was very alarmed by her. But I've just been like so pleasantly surprised just how loving and nice she is. Yeah.
This is probably going to be really surprising, but the senior I had the least accurate first impression of was probably Carissa. Now we're besties. She, for context, it was like freshman winter break or whatever, and we were both back for different things, but I didn't know what she was back for at the time. She comes up, we had like one mutual friend, and she comes up in this like floor-length Canada Goose, and she's like, yeah, like I'm just going around touring different companies, and like it's really fun and everything. And I was like, oh my god, who is this girl? Like, she's so pre-professional, like I'm never gonna be friends with her. And then I realized, like, you know, we are basically the same person through our multiple encounters in that magical 2-hour bus ride to our first winter retreat together. So yeah, definitely the the least accurate first impression of.
A senior as a VeggieTales character. Probably Jenna as Bob. I think Jenna is just that person who is anchoring the group when Larry's running around doing who knows what. When Larry has his solo for like, where's my hairbrush? Jenna's there to bring us back to the regularly scheduled program.
I don't know if we're still keeping the superlative, but who reminds you most of a VeggieTale character? Jenna Bao.
Maybe it's like the welcoming nature of Jenna Bao, but I feel like she reminds me the most of a VeggieTale character.
So, 2 pieces of advice. First is AACF related. For all the underclassmen, reach out to the upperclassmen. If there's a junior or a senior that you really think you would love to get to know, or that you're seeking advice or wisdom from, just reach out to them. It's never a burden for them, and speaking from my own experience, we would always love to get to know you better and be able to pour out to you everything that we've received in any way possible. And then more broadly, just in terms of life at college, I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give is a piece of advice that I've received so many times that I never really internalized until I look back at it now. And that's just to learn how to be grateful for the promises that God has in store for you that haven't necessarily materialized yet. I think this requires so much trust that things will just ultimately work out in the end. But God really does have a beautiful plan for his journey for you throughout college and also throughout life beyond that. And being able to be grateful for what he has in store, even when it's not clear, even when things are difficult, even when you don't really know what it is that God is leading you toward. I think that practice of gratitude has helped me be able to be at peace with all the ups and downs throughout college, and it's really, really helped me a lot.
Okay, so advice to underclassmen. Just a couple things to go down the list. Okay, first, I would just say explore as much as you can. I think I've had a lot of conversations with folks recently who feel a lot of pressure to like stay on one track and just figure out how they can like optimize for this one singular end without necessarily having like full confidence in the fact that that's what they're actually most passionate about, or even if it's not what they're most passionate about, like what they think that they would be happiest doing. And so I would just say that like college is realistically just like a high stress, low stakes season of life. I know in a lot of ways it can feel like it's not low stakes, but also we're at Harvard and we're like 18 to 22. Like it's stakes are objectively really rather low. So yeah, just check out different things because you're probably never going to have as many different options as accessible to you as you do now. Communities wise, I'd say I really recommend choosing like one or two communities and spaces that you really are willing to commit to and prioritize investing your time in. Obviously having a diverse set of connections and friendships is really valuable and important, but at the end of the day there's only so much time. Everyone's really busy, so I would try and just kind of identify and set your sights on what is the community that has people that I love, people that love me, a culture and kind of environment that is life-giving and is going to make me happy, and just be willing to invest in that space and also to stick with it. Obviously some things are not going to be like the organization or the place that you stay in all through college, and that's totally fine. But I would encourage you to, especially if something is important to you, then like be willing to sit through some struggle and interpersonal conflict and feelings of the frustration that come with just being in meaningful relationship with one another. I think that's definitely worth it. In terms of time, I think I'm a strong proponent for Sabbathing. Starting in my sophomore year after winter retreat, I set it as a goal to aspire to Sabbath one day a week, every week. I have certainly not been able to maintain that perfectly, but every time that I have, it has definitely been something that I was grateful that I did. I'm very glad that that was a habit that I at least tried to form in college, and it's definitely something that has really helped me been able to like recognize the value of giving time up to God, and also just like at a very practical level of like rest and realizing that if you're less likely to like burn out, then you're actually going to probably be more productive in the long term. I'm really, really grateful for this community, for all of the amazing friends that I've made in AACF. I really truly hope that this can be a space where all of you underclassmen are also able to just find joy and love and wonderful memories together.
My number one advice is to be honest with yourself. And I believe like the only way for things to change is if you're honest with yourself. And this needs to be like a raw and uncomfortable honesty that like makes you feel uncomfortable to say out loud. I think honesty requires you to validate your own feelings. And for a long time, for example, I think it was really hard for me to be honest when I felt angry at someone, because I never wanted to be angry at people. Like, doesn't the Bible say like you shouldn't be angry at someone? And I just felt a ton of shame when I had like such violent and like nasty thoughts about people that had hurt me. But I had to be honest with myself, and I know my feelings are valid. Like whatever it is valid. And that honesty I had about myself, about how like oh, I didn't like that internship, I don't like how that friend is treating me, that person makes me feel angry. All of this honesty has helped me, because the whole point of honesty is to help yourself. Like, you don't need to be honest, you don't always have to say this to other people, but you need to say it to yourself. And another thing I'm trying to be honest about is like whether I like the work. And I don't know, I just think honesty just helps you understand yourself better, because I think that's what God is calling us to do.
This question is always hard and difficult, and I hope I don't sound too jaded or like meta answering this. But I think the thing that I thought about was like, I think it's important, especially as Christians, to really think about like, what is the purpose of God putting me on Harvard's campus? Like, why has God brought me here, and what does he want me to do? What potential does he see in me? What does he want me to accomplish my time here? Because I think that really drives a lot of the other things that we choose to do on campus. I think so often we want to compare ourselves to our friends who are doing better than us in maybe classes or like internship opportunities or even like social events and social clubs. And I think it's really easy to fall into that rabbit hole when we don't realize like God has created each of us uniquely with talents and gifts and really just like blessed us in our own ways. And I think it's really important to think about like, okay, like what does God need me to do here? Like what work is he calling me to do here on Harvard's campus? And I think that will guide a lot of like, how do we balance our time, and sort of leads into all these other cliche like takeaways that a lot of seniors give, like, oh, be more present and like spend more time with friends and things like that. I think that balance all comes from like understanding like, oh, what is God's purpose for me? Like, what does he want me to do on this campus? Does he want me to touch people's lives? Should I be spending more time investing in these relationships with others? Like, does he want me to really pursue academia or pursue the specific internship because with my talents and skills, like there must be some other work that he wants me to do in these fields? And I think once you can answer that question, like a lot of Harvard doesn't become easier per se, but it does become enjoyable. Like it becomes things that you feel like you are doing towards your purpose that God has created for you. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's something I would say. I hope that's not too meta. Yeah. Also, no bash on if any other seniors talk about the cliche things I mentioned. You're great. Yeah.
My first piece of advice is to take time to find your own pace and really enjoy the harvest that you come across. One sermon from back home that really carried me throughout college was one about that. It was about finding your own pace and your own path. The takeaway was that if you follow a path marked by pride, self-focus, self-prioritization, and achievement, it'll be really easy to lose sight of what you started out doing and, more importantly, what God has in store for you, which may not or may align with whatever society expects out of you, what Harvard or whatever, I guess, like the outside world expects. And I think, at least for me throughout college, even though I took that into heart, it was really easy to fall outside of that path and find myself following a pace that was set by other people and not for myself or the one set by God. And along the way, it was really easy to not enjoy or not celebrate what God has given me or what I've accomplished so far, no matter how big or how small it might be in outside standards. Surround yourself with good, nurturing people that truly care about you and will be willing to be there for you in times of struggle, but also in good times, and celebrate that with you as well. And this can be beyond your relationship with God, your family, your friends, and even mentors like professors. And once you find those relationships, really invest in them, take care of them, thank them, and give back to other people in that way. And my last piece of advice is something that one of my mentors told me, like my freshman, sophomore year. It is, if you don't ASK, you won't GET. The worst thing you can ever hear from somebody is no. But I learned along the way that you should hear more no's than more yeses, and that is okay, and that should be the norm, and that is the norm. I think just people don't talk about it enough. And I think there's a lot more to learn from the mistakes or things that didn't work out, or just like whether it's like reaching out to a professor or reaching out to a friend or applying to internships or something of that sort, anything, whatever, that involves going outside your comfort zone, it's okay if things don't work out, but try for them because you never know what will happen and you'll be pleasantly surprised. But you never know if you never try. And so I really urge you to take advantage of that. And if you haven't started doing it, do it now.
My advice would be to really try and find joy in every single little thing that you do throughout your day. And that's like actually really hard, especially when things are just ordinary or challenging throughout your day. But I think this is something that I really tried to do this past senior year, because I really wanted to try and appreciate every moment that I have left in college. And I think honestly, it's just given me such a bigger appreciation for God's love, for God's glory, and his amazing power. So whether that's just, appreciating getting to know somebody at a meal, or when I'm peace sitting by myself and it's a really, going through like a really tough problem or really challenging portion of the peace sit, but really appreciating like just the fact that we have this opportunity to learn and to challenge myself and to grow. Little things like that. I think I've been trying to keep that mindset, and it's really, really changed the way that my semester, my whole outlook of this past year has been. So I really hope that you guys can do that for your upcoming school semesters. You're gonna do great. Good luck.
But yeah, if I had to share a piece of advice that I would find helpful, or that I too am also still thinking about actively, it would be to just not wish away the busyness, or to allow any kind of resentment towards busyness as a whole to grow and potentially eclipse the joy that you can find and are invited to find in those spaces and times and people. That's not to say that there's not a time and a place, or even many, where saying no is maybe the best. But I've personally caught myself at several points in time throughout my college career saying how much I wish this week was over, so that X, Y, or Z will have passed and I'll be able to carry on and enjoy my post-assignment, hard conversation, any other uncomfortable thing life. But I felt particularly convicted this semester that as I wish away these weeks, the reality of being able to count down the number of weeks I have left as an undergrad with one hand. I don't even want to think about the day when I can count with my fingers how many days are left. That's for another time. I was kind of forced to confront and realize how each item of busyness on a checklist, each deadline, each meal, each meeting, each commute even, they were all being instrumentally used to remind me of God's presence and his goodness that has and continues to touch just every corner of my life and of my day. However mundane or routine it may seem or feel in the moment. And I realized last semester how much God can really stretch our days in the best way possible. I know there's some days where you can't wait for it to be over and that kind of thing. But he really stretches our days. And especially in a place where it feels like we've been sucked into this kind of time warp, and when you're like spat out at the end of it, whether it's the end of a semester, the end of a school year, or the end of the whole 4 years, you look back and are just kind of puzzled at how in the world you got here already. It was so comforting and amazing to see how God really stretched my time, as I saw and often noted in my journal how and where he was moving for and or through me that day in my life. I remember one day writing in my journal at lunch at like noon or something, just jotting down in bullet points what I felt God was telling me that morning as I talked to him on my way to an office hours. and everything that followed. And a whole page and more of my journal was already filled with bullets from just a couple of hours at the very start of the day. And that got me so excited for what was in store for the rest of that day, what was in store for the rest of the week. And so he's in the big and the small, hand outstretched and ready for you to grab hold as a father, a best friend, a counselor. So I would encourage you to look for it in the exciting times, the moments and activities that are filled with so much laughter and joy, and also the challenging or rote, boring, even oppressive weight of other responsibilities that have objectively good purposes that you see, but you feel like are subjectively draining at the moment. And to just thank him for it, whether you know now, later, or never why you're doing it, because he does. And that is great news. So I would implore you all, don't wait until the pressure of time ticking down prompts you to do so. And yeah, praise.
I didn't know there was a Christian community at Harvard, or I didn't look for it. Yeah, maybe I even actively avoided it. No reason other than I didn't know. I was not looking to join anything when I came to Harvard. So all of you who are watching this are probably ahead of the curve, since you're probably in AACF or checking out AACF. But what advice can I give? God is good. God is good and God loves you. And I think I say that because AACF is wonderful and such a blessing. But it's even more so a blessing when it is there because God is in the center of your life, and AACF is an extension of your community. I think the two core things that I'm saying is, as a Christian, know that God loves you. He's not looking for perfection. He's not looking for you to automatically know how to do everything. He is looking for a willing and honorable heart, and he will meet you where you are. And I think that should take a lot of stress and anxiety off of you, especially as a Christian. You don't need to know how to do everything perfectly. I think you should always strive to grow spiritually as you strive to grow in things of wisdom or things of natural talent. But know that God's there to help you, and that you don't have to be scared to ask him for help if you're struggling. You don't have to be in a perfect place. And that AACF is a place for you to not base your faith, but walk in your faith. You can explore faith together with your community. You can bless your AACF members as God directs you. You can receive from God through AACF members. I think my best advice is know that God loves you, no matter how you feel. Remind yourself of it and pursue God. Even when you're busy, even when you don't feel like it, because in doing so, he will meet you and he will bless you through the entirety of your college.